Chapter 4, Events Leading Up to. An optional flashback chapter, if you'd like to listen to this one. Some background about how Jack and Bep met. Although most Dutch young men were drafted at around age 18 at that time, Jack had been allowed to postpone his military duties till after he graduated from college. Because of his education, he was assigned the rank of Vaandrig, or officer candidate. One day Jack was out in a jeep with a fellow Vaandrig, along with the private and the jeep's chauffeur. They were in a village near the base, setting up a practice area near the beach to run mock patrols, when the soldiers spotted a group of 4 young women sunbathing nearby. These women worked at a department store in Rotterdam, and were taking a week of holidays together, having rented a cottage from the father of one of the girls. After a brief discussion, the 2 young officers decided this stretch of beach seemed an appropriate area to set up as part of the patrol. It sometimes took the officers considerably longer to reach such an accord, but this section of beach seemed of unusual strategic importance, and their combined mutual training and experience, or perhaps experience they wished to obtain, led them to park their jeep nearby, post a marker, and take a little walk along the beach. Hello, ladies. I hope we're not disturbing you. Did you know this area is occasionally used for practice patrols? I hope that will not interfere with your enjoyment of the beach. The girls had already spotted the dapper young man when the jeep pulled up 50 meters away, and had commented among themselves how handsome they looked in their uniforms. Once the ice was broken, they talked for a little while, and the men learned more about the vacationing young women and their nearby accommodation. That evening, there was an open-air concert in the village the girls were staying in, an event they were made aware of by the 4 soldiers. Jack asked Bep if she would like to attend with him. That evening, Jack and Bep, along with 2 other couples from that group, went to the concert. Jack invited Bep to a movie later that week, and somehow managed to stop by a few times at the cottage the girls were renting, which also seemed to be within the perimeter of the patrol area set up. Amazing how these things work out sometimes. The weekend after the girls went back home, Jack went on a scooter, more of a bicycle with a motor fastened on to turn the front wheel, from Leiden to Rotterdam to visit Bep, to spend the day with her. After that, he returned every week or 2 to do the same, sometimes traveling by rail. After a few months, Bep started to go to Leiden by train, and would then ride on the back of Jack's scooter from the railway station back to his parents' home, where she would sometimes stay overnight in a spare room. There wasn't really much room for Jack where Bep lived in Rotterdam, though he did spend a few nights here and there on the couch. Jack and Bep continued to see each other regularly, and Bep became Jack's fiancée only a few months later. About a year after their meeting, Jack's tour of duty, so to speak, was up, but he continued as a civilian employee of the Navy as a radar technician. Another year passed, during which they discussed the prospect of marriage and where to live. Housing prospects were bleak. Much housing had been lost in the war, so where to live became a great stumbling block to many couples hoping to get married. Jack began to expand his horizons in search for a place to live with his hopefully soon-to-be wife. He answered an ad from a foreign company calling for engineers and those with aircraft and related experience to be interviewed. Jack pulled together notes on all he had done, including his recent radar experience, and, as a young man nearing 25, went off to the interview site with high hopes. The interview was to be held in English, but that was no problem for Jack, who knew a few languages other than Dutch fairly well. The aviation company from Canada had not been able to find enough personnel in their vicinity, and by broadening their search to Holland, found in Jack a well-qualified engineer suited to their needs. A few days later, he was offered a job in Montreal. Pay was good, but there was a drawback. The company's difficulty in finding local engineers did not seem to translate into any great generosity when it came to relocating those found abroad. If Jack wanted to work in Canada, they would loan him the money for the flight, but they would take it back out of his salary later. Bep, more than just a good job. This is a chance for us to have a place to live together, not in an attic with a curtain for privacy, but our own apartment. Bep, will you marry me? Well, Jack and Bep had already been engaged 2 years, and she had already in principle agreed to marry him. But this seemed too sudden. Montreal, don't they speak French there? Bep knew a few words of English, but no French. No. We can speak English there too. It will be fine, entreated Jack, who was reasonably proficient in both of Canada's official languages. Bep was not so convinced about the language issues, and had heard that Canada was cold, but the prospect of their own place besides being head over heels in love with Jack, were the deciding factor.